So in this video, let's review what are the event listeners. So for example, right here, we have this website. And for example, when I open this is an event that is happening in the website. If you click here, this is going to be another event. If you start writing here and then you fill the form and click on submit, this is going to execute another event. So in JavaScript, you will find something called event listeners. An event listener will wait for any specific interaction in your website. Then they will execute the code. So for example, when a user clicks a button, we can create a code that is going to be executed once they add any course into the cart. Also, if someone submits a form, we can create a code that is going to execute when someone clicks on this button to make a search. So we're gonna open the console again. So basically, so far, all the code that we have written is going to execute once this file is read. So for example, it's going to download this page, and then when it starts reading this JavaScript file, it's going to load this code. We can create code that is going to be executed once one of these events happens. So if you open the index.html, let's make a search for shopping cart. You can see that here on the bottom we have a button. I'm gonna make this a little bigger. That says clear cart, and we have this text that says clear cart. So we have this button right here on the bottom, clear cart. You can see that this is using this ID. So we're gonna create the first event listener. We're gonna add event listeners. And basically we're gonna create a code that is going to wait until someone clicks on this button. Maybe someone open the website and clicks on this button, or maybe no one clicks the button, but the code is going to be executed only when this button is clicked. So it's going to be like this. We're gonna add document, query selector, and we can change this query selector. We can use something like get element by ID, just to change a little the functions. We're gonna add clear cart, which is the name of this button that we have here in the bottom to clear the cart. And then we're gonna add a dot, and we're gonna add the event listener. This is how you attach an event listener into this button. Then you pass the event, and you can see that we have several events right here. Covering everything is going to be impossible, but I'm going to show you the most common events. So in this case, we want to listen for a click. Then you add a comma, and it's going to execute a function. And then you add the semicolon at the end. So then we're going to add, for example, a console.log that says you clicked the button, like this. So save this, open your project, open the cart and clear cart, and you can see we have you clicked the button. So this code is holding there, is not being executed, is waiting until someone clicks on clear to cart button. So there are several ways of doing these event listeners. Some people prefer, for example, create a different variable, const clear cart btn equals to this selector page right here, and they add this variable right here, right here. So for example, they create the variable and then they attach the event listener over here. So both ways are doing the same, and it's more a personal preference. So also some people, you can see that we have this function here. Some people prefer to define a function. And let's create a function, and let's add something like clear btn function, like this. And you cut this and paste right here, and then you replace this. So basically you add the function right here, and then you remove these braces. So it's going to be like this. Some people prefer this method, it's much cleaner in my opinion also. So you can click here on clear button and you can see that this is working. So this is another way of doing the same. So in the next video, let's continue working. We're gonna take a look at something called the target. So let's continue in the next video. So we have this code. Now you can see, for example, if I click on the clear button, this code is being executed every time that we click on this button. So let's remove this. And we're gonna create something called the target in this video. We're gonna create an element and we're gonna send this value to the console so we can see what is exactly the target. So for example, I'm gonna add element equals to E, and this E should be right here also. So every time that you click on this, is running something called an event, and this event is going to be added right here if you pass this E into the name of the function in the parentheses. So save this, click here on the clear card, and now you can see that it's printing mouse event. And you can see that we have some information right here. You can see, for example, the position where this was clicked is being added also. If we make this a little smaller, and then you click here, you can see that the numbers are different. So that's something nice. So we're gonna click here on the triangle, and now you can see that we have more information right here. For me, I think the most important information is here on the target. So we're gonna find some useful information right here. So we're gonna send that to the console. We're gonna read the target. It's going to be like this, element equals to e.target. E.target like this, and click here. Now you can see that we only have the target, which is the element that was clicked and execute this code. So for example, you can also access element equals e.target.id, and when you click here, it's going to return the ID of the clear card. You can also add e.target.class name, and this is going to print the class associated with this button. You can see that we have two classes, button and U full width. You can also add element equals to e.target and add something like inner text. So save this and click, and you can see we have clear card. And you can also make a change in the code, in the HTML, if you add something like e.target inner text, and we add something like 2 + 2. So save this, click here, and now you can see we have 4. So let's return this. We're gonna add element equals to e.target, and basically the idea of this is that you click here, and this is going to return the element that was clicked and fire this code. This is going to be really helpful, especially when we saw a topic called delegation. But also it's really important this E that we are passing right here. You can see this E, normally you will find this as EBT or event. Some people prefer to name this E or event or EBT. In case that you decide to name this E, you have to change all these variables. Something like this. Then the dot, and it's going to work. So this is going to be the event that is happening to execute this function. So that's going to be really important. So in the next video, let's see other mouse events. You can see that we only saw the video with click. There are several mouse events. We're gonna see some of the most common in the next video. So let's review the mouse events in JavaScript. You can see that in the previous video, we played a little with the click event. There are several other events that you can use. So we're gonna add mouse events. And we're gonna add, we're gonna create the variables. First, I'm gonna create a variable called heading. It's going to add, it's going to select query selector heading. Then we're gonna create another one called links. It's going to be the navigation. So we're gonna use document query selector, and we're gonna select the first navigation. And finally, we're gonna create another variable for the clear car btn. It's going to be document query selector and then clear cart. It's like this. We can test that everything is working just by sending these values to the console. So console.log. And we're gonna add the links and also the clear cart btn. So you can see that everything is working. So we're gonna remove this. And I'm gonna create a function here on the bottom. Function print event. Then we're gonna pass the event right here. And we're gonna add console.log template or string literals. The event is, and then we're gonna add the $sign, open and close the curly braces, and we're gonna add e type. This is going to be the type of event that is being fired. So this is going to be the setup that we need. So first we're gonna check for the click event, click mouse event. All of these are mouse events. We're gonna see the click event first. So we're gonna add clear cart btn, and we're gonna add event listener, click, and this is going to execute this function that we have here. So you can see first we select the element, then we attach the event and also the function, and then we have the function that is going to be executed, and always is going to be like this in JavaScript. So let's save this, open the cart, clear on cart, and now you can see we have the event is and we have click. If we send this value to the console, console.log e, remember that normally you will find this as e, ebt, or event. And this is a personal preference for anyone that is using events. You can see that we have mouse event, and here on the bottom you will see that we have this type. So this type is coming from here. This type is coming from here. So that's basically everything this code is doing. So next we have also double click. We're gonna add something like this, clear cart btn, add event listener, and it's gonna be called db click, dbl click, and then you pass print event. So save this, and we're gonna comment this line. We're gonna keep this only one event per time. You can see if I click here, click, nothing is happening. But if you make 2 clicks really fast, you can see we have double click right here. So basically using this event listener is how Google Drive, for example, or Dropbox simulate the opening and of the folders. So let's create another one. This is going to be mouse enter, and we're gonna continue using the same. We're gonna add clear cart btn, and we're gonna add an event listener called mouse enter. Then we're gonna add print event. So comment this line, the previous line, save this, and mouse enter is going to be similar to a hover in CSS. So you have to enter, and you can see that is the event is being fired. Similar to this, we have mouse out. Well, first we're gonna check mouse leave, and mouse leave is the opposite as this one. So we're gonna copy this, copy everything from here, comment this line, and we're gonna add mouse leave. This is going to be the event mouse leave. So save this and open the cart. You can see if I enter, nothing is happening, but if I leave the button, the event is being fired. So we have also mouse over, and we're gonna comment this line, and we're gonna add mouse over here, and let's open this. And mouse over is basically the same as mouse enter. You can see when I enter, it's printing mouse over. So the same way we have mouse leave, and we're gonna mouse out. We already saw mouse leave. And mouse out, this is going to be the same as mouse leave, but it's going to be mouse out. So save this. You can see if I enter and nothing is happening. If I leave the button, mouse out is going to be executed. And I'm gonna comment this line. And we also have another one called mouse up, and we're going to add something like mouse up. So save this, and in order to see this, you have to, for example, open this, click and hold, and then release the mouse button, and it's going to execute mouse down, mouse up. Same way we have mouse down, and we're gonna comment this line. It's going to be mouse, it's going to be down right here. So save this, and when you click and hold, it's going to be executed. And when you release, nothing is going to happen. So finally, there is another one. We already saw all the examples with clear car btn. We're gonna see mouse move, and we're gonna use that heading function, that heading variable, heading add event listener. We're gonna call this one mouse move, and we're gonna fire the print event function. So save this, and mouse move, check what happens when you mouse into the online courses text. You can see that it's firing this a lot of times. So this one is really useful when you are developing video games with JavaScript. So in the next video, let's take a look at the input events. These inputs have their own events, so we're gonna see some of those in the next video. So let's review the input events, also events for forms that we have here. I'm gonna make a search for form. You can see that this form has this ID called search, so we're gonna create a variable. First, we're gonna call this one input and form events. Then we're gonna create the variables. We're gonna add const, and we're gonna call this one search form. Is going to be equals to document get element by ID, and we're gonna pass this search ID. Then if you take a look here, we have right here, this is the ID of the text, so it's going to be search course. So we're gonna create a second variable. We're gonna add a comma right here. We're gonna add search input. It's going to be equal to document get element by ID, and we're gonna use search course. And of course, you can always test that everything is working, adding search form right here, and adding console.log search input like this. So save this, open the console, and you can see we have the form, and we have also the input. So we're gonna remove this, and we're gonna create a new function. We're gonna call this one print event, same as we did in the last video. We're gonna add the event right here. We're gonna pass this event to this function, and we're going to add the following: console.log, and we're gonna add the template literals. The type of event is going to be, then we're going to add $, then curly braces, and it's going to be e dot type like we did in the last video. So let's start with the search form, where I'm gonna show you the most common events for forms. The most common is going to be submit. So we're going to add search form, and we're gonna add event listener. We're gonna pass submit, and then we're gonna execute this function. So something like this. Save this, open the browser, and we're gonna add something here. Any text is going to be fine. Then you click here. This is going to be the submit button. We already have this. You can see that we have submit. With some CSS, I changed the icon to a magnifying glass. So click here, and now you can see we have submit. And then you can see it flash, and we are in this section. This is happening because if we take a look here on the form, we have this action, and this is like the default behavior. So for example, if you have something here like results.php, this is going to open this page. This is the standard behavior in any form. Normally, when you are working with JavaScript, you want to stop this default behavior, and you are going to stop this by adding right here that prevent default. Something like this is going to stop this page, this new page, from running. So let's open this, make sure that you clear the caches, and then we're gonna add new course. Then you click here and you can see that we have type submit, but the most important thing is that the other page, the one in the action, didn't open. So that's why it's useful to use a.prevent default. So one of the nicest things about this is that, for example, you will have access to this search input value, and you can add something like this, console.log. We're gonna add a comment, print the value from the input. So we're going to add console.log, and then we're gonna add search input, and you will have access to anything that is inside here, everything that is typed by adding .value. So save this. Let's add another one. We're gonna make a search for modern JavaScript, my new course, and we're gonna click here, and you can see we have the value modern JS, and the type is a submit. So again, this is the most common event when you have forms, and this is how you stop the default action, which is going to be open this action. Again, we have this pound sign, but if you have something like results.php, or if you are sending an email, send.php or something, if you are using a different backend language, then this is going to be open by default. But you can use prevent default and make sure that you pass the E right here. Prevent default is going to stop that from running. And that's especially useful when you want to read, for example, these values, and then you want to make something with that code instead of running the default action. That's going to be really helpful. So this is the most common form event. We're going to see other events. They are called input events. So we're going to start working in this input that we have here. So we're going to add this search input. And then we're going to add event listener. And let's start working with key down. Then we're going to add this print event. We need to comment that line, the prevent default. This is only helpful when you have a submit event, and we're gonna make the test. So let's add something like hello, and you can see that every time we run, we type something, is running this type key down, and also the value we have hell right here because it's printing this. So we're gonna comment this line also. And you can see every time that we type is printing this key down. If you want to print the value, you can leave this search input that value. You can see every time that we type something, the value is being sent to the console also. But the idea of the key down is that, for example, if I reload here, is when you press, every time that you press is going to be key down. There is another one. I'm going to comment this line, comment this. And the other one is called key up, like this. And it's going to be similar to the mouse events. Is when you click the key and then release. So every time that you release, it's going to execute this code. You can see that it's sending the values to the console. Comment this line again. There is another one called key press. So it's going to run every time that you type something. Any key that is clicked is going to run this. There is also another one. We're going to add focus. And focus is going to be really helpful. For example, click inside the input. You can see that we are on focus. So every time that you click inside the input and you are in, it's going to run focus. So every time that you want to make a search, it's going to run this focus. There is also another one. This one is really helpful, especially when you are validating a form. It's called blur. So for example, let's say that we add something here like Photoshop, and then we leave the input. You can see that this is going to fire this. So if you are validating any form, you can use, for example, right here, copy this. And I'm going to add if search input that value that length is equals to 0, then we're gonna fire an alert. Type something, please. Something like that. save this. And for example, if I click here and then leave, it's going to print type something please. If you're validating a form, this is going to be really helpful. Of course, I don't recommend that you use this alert. Maybe a message here on the bottom. We're gonna see how to do that, especially in the projects. So we're almost done with this. I'm gonna remove this and copy one of these, comment this line, and we're gonna add cut. So you can also select the cut. If you type something like here, for example, and you select everything and cut, you can see we have cut right here. So you can track also that in your forms. You have also copy. So save this, and we're gonna type something again, and I'm gonna press Command C, Control C. This is going to copy. Sorry, it was copy here. Copy. So type something here, select everything, Command C or Control C, and you can see we have copy. Also, there is another one similar to this, is called paste. So you can add paste. By the way, one of the usage of this copy, for example, is that maybe you have visited some websites that, for example, if you try to copy something that you want to share with your friends, new or something, some of them fire an alert that says that you cannot copy the text because that's rights infringement or something like that. So copy is really helpful there. So we're gonna comment this line, uncomment this, and the other one is paste. So paste is going to be like this, and paste is gonna fire if you paste something here. Finally, there is another one called input. We're gonna copy this line, and the other one is called input. So type input right here, and input is going to fire, for example, every time that you type something. If you cut, if you paste, if you copy, cut, and paste, every time it's going to run. This one is going to listen for all the previous events. So this is the basics of event listeners. So in the next video, let's see a topic that is really weird called the event bubbling. Let's see what is the event bubbling and how you can work with event bubbling in JavaScript. So let's review the event bubbling in JavaScript. I think this is a topic that is easier to explain by building an example. So we're gonna take a look at the event bubbling, and we're gonna create the variables. Here at the bottom, we're gonna add the event listeners. So I'm gonna remove some of the space right here. So right here, for example, if I open this, you can see that we have this add to cart. If we inspect this, you can see that we have this button that says add to cart, and this is an anchor. This is inside an info card, and also this one is inside a cart. So this is going to be a really nice example of the event bubbling. So first we're gonna select const cart or cart. We're gonna use only the first one, query selector, and we're gonna use dot cart. Next I'm gonna add a comma right here. The three different variables are const, so we're gonna add info cards. Info cards is going to be equals to document query selector also, and this class is going to be called info card, comma, and this is going to be the last one. Add card btn is going to be equals to document query selector, and this class is called add to card. So really quick, we're gonna see that everything is working, that the selectors are fine, and we're gonna call info cards right here, and also the add to cart. So save this and open the console. You can see that we have the three different elements right here. So then we're gonna create the event listeners. So we're gonna select this card first. We're gonna add card and a dot, add event listener. This is going to listen for a click. Then we're gonna pass the function. And of course, in the previous examples, we created a function separated. You can also create the function like this. We already saw, for example, that you can pass the E In this case, if you create an anonymous function like this one, this E is going to be added inside the parentheses. So it's going to be really simple. We're going to add console.log and we're going to add you click at the card. Because since this is a function from only one line and the three functions are different, I'm going to add this as anonymous functions. So we're going to copy this, paste, and I'm going to change the variable. And in this case, it's going to be you click it the info. And the last one is going to be this add to cart. And this is going to be you click it on the add to cart btn. So save this and let's make a test. So first we're gonna click on the image. You can see we have you clicked on the cart. And that's fine, that's something that you can expect. And let's click, for example, in the title. Click here, and you can see I'm gonna click this. Click here again, you can see that we have you click at the info, but also you click at the card is being fired. And this is happening because we have a listener for the card and also for the info card. Let's open the HTML and scroll a little. You can see that we have the info card right here. If you click here, you can see that this is part of the card. So that's the event bubbling. You click here, but also since this is inside this element, it thinks or it bubbles and executes the events and the functions attached to this section also. So if you have an element like this card that is wrapping the other element, if you click here, it's going to bubble until the parent also. And if you remember, we have also this add to card, which is inside the info card, which is inside the card. So what do you think is going to happen? So reload this and click on add to cart, and yeah, you can see this is going to fire the three different event listeners. So this is what happens when you have, for example, an event listener here that is inside another event listener that is inside another event listener. The events are going to bubble and are going to affect the parents also. There are two ways to fix something like this. The first one is something called stop propagation. So again, we need to pass here on the function, we need to pass the event in the three items that you want to stop the propagation. And then right here, you add e dot stop propagation and you open the parentheses. So let's copy this and paste and paste. So now you can see the importance of passing the events, because passing the events, you will have a bunch of different methods already written for you. So let's save this document and open the browser. We're gonna click here on the image. You can see you click the card. That was fine. Clear this. Click on the HTML, and now you can see we have only you click at the info, and also clear this. Click on the add to cart, and you can see we have you click it on the add to cart btn. So this is a way that you can stop the propagation. Also, there is another way, which is called delegation, which in my opinion is a better way of doing something like this. It has more advanced features when you use delegation. So in the next video, we're gonna take a look at delegation. Delegation is going to fix a lot of problems when you are working with JavaScript. Instead of, for example, creating a bunch of different buttons with different event listeners, we can use delegation. If you remember, when you click in one of these, you can pass the event, and also if you use event target, you will have access to the element that triggered that event. So I think an example is going to be easier. We're gonna add delegation right here, and we're gonna add the following. We're gonna add something like document.body, and we're gonna add event listener. Then we're gonna listen for a click, and we're gonna add something like remove product from cart. Then we're gonna add the function. Then we're gonna pass this name, remove product from cart. We're gonna pass the e because we need the the event, and we're gonna console log this event. So you can see the event listener is on the body. So if we reload this and you click here, you can see that this is going to listen for events that happens into the body. And not exactly what we are looking for, because I want to listen for changes or clicks in these remove buttons. If we take a look here, for example, and let's scroll to the top, you can see that these eggs are using this anchor and they have this class called remove. So we can add something like this. We can add console.log and we can add e.target. So save this and click on it here, for example. You can see that this is going to fire the target, the element that is triggering this function. If you click here on cleared card, you can see we have another one. If you click in one of these, you can see that we have this. So we need to access this class with the value remove. So we can add a dot again called class list like this, and this is going to print the class of the element that is being clicked. So click here and you can see that we have this DOM token list. We have the classes. You can also add a class name if you want the full string. So click here. You can see we have the full string, but I think we're gonna use class list for this example. So click here. You can see that this contains 5 different classes. You can click here. This one contains this remove class. Clear card. This one contains 2 different classes. So we're gonna use something like this. So in this example, we're looking for a class called remove. We're gonna add an if, and we're gonna copy this, and paste this inside the if statement. So then we need to check the class of the element that is firing this function. And you're gonna use .contains. .contains is going to check for a class into this class list, contains. So we're gonna check for remove, which is going to be the class that you will find in these anchors that we have here. So for example, we can add something like console.log. We're gonna add yes. We're gonna add an else, and here we're going to add console.log. No, something like this. So let's open the browser again. Click here on the add to cart, and you can see it says no. And we can comment this line. You can see it says no. You can click here. It also says no, and it's opening also the different page. Click here. You can see it says no, no, and it couldn't find anything. So let's open this. Click here, and you can see we have yes. So finally, we can add something here. We can add, for example, e.target, and we can make some traversing. We can make some traversing, and I'm gonna add console.log e.target, and we're gonna add a dot, and we're gonna make a traversing from the children to the parent. We're gonna add parent element right here. So save this again, open this, click here, and you can see that this is going to print the table data, which is this part. We need to make we need to go one level up to open this tr or this tr. So we're gonna add parent element again and save this, open the card, click here, and now you can see we have the whole table row. So from here we can add something like, and I'm gonna remove everything, that remove is going to remove this from the DOM. So save this, open this again, click here, and now you can see we remove that, click here, and now this remove the other one. So normally you will be more specific with your delegation, because we have a body right here, and this is going to listen for clicks in all the places. Also normally you will have only the if statement, so we can make this more specific. If we inspect the code right here, you can see that we have this ID called shopping cart, and we're gonna select this. For example, we're gonna create a const shopping cart, is going to be equals to document query selector and the ID shopping cart. And from here we can remove this and add shopping cart right here, cut this and place this here on the bottom. And it's going to be like this, or delegation, you can see. So open this, click here, and you can see that this is working. So let's make another quick example. Let's say, for example, that we are targeting this add to cart. If you scroll a little, you will find that everything is wrapped inside this courses list. So we're gonna create another one. Add to cart, and we're gonna add const course list is going to be equals to document query selector, and we're gonna select this ID. Then we're gonna add course list. It's going to be equals to an event listener. We're looking for any click, and we're gonna add to cart like this. Then I'm gonna remove this. We're gonna create a function. Function add to cart, like this is going to be better. Then we need to pass this E, since we need to access this E target. So we can, for example, copy this. And in this case, we're looking for the class called add to cart. You can see it right here. So add to cart, and we're gonna add to cart. And right here, I'm gonna add console.log course added. Something like this, something really simple. We're gonna develop this example a little more in the upcoming videos. So open the console, click here, and you can see we have course added. Click here, and you can see we have also course added. And you can click here in this one, you can see we also have course added. But this is the basics of delegations. You can see that doing this, you will have these listeners for specific classes. And this is going to be a much more cleaner way of working. Of course, if you only have one form right here, I recommend that you create the event listener like we saw in the previous examples. But if you have a lot of different options like this, a lot of different buttons, I recommend that you use delegations. Also for an example like this one, I recommend to use delegation. So in the next video, let's take a look at something called the local storage, one of the powerful new features that you will find on ECMAScript 6.